Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Six Figure Certified Coach, the podcast powered by IGC, your favorite coach training school. My name is Liv Chapman. I am the co-founder and CEO of IGC, and this is a special episode with me and my partner, Katie.
So excited.
I know I always enjoy our solo episodes together, mostly because we always rehash a lot of old stories, many of which are embarrassing, all of which are enlightening.
Yeah, I like it too. Let's do it. Let's share some dirt today.
So the topic that we're covering today is how to fund or self-fund, which we're going to talk a lot about. I actually had never heard the term self-fund until you started using it, Katie. So in your words, what does that mean?
Well, self-fund is just funding something on your own. And I mean, we can share a little bit of dirt right away here. Both of us have our own story around this. But for me, I wanted to start a business and I wanted to be able to fund it on my own, really, because I wanted to be independent from my family. I didn't want to have to rely on the family business. I didn't want to have a regular job. That was like a given for me pretty much right away when I graduated college, maybe even before then. And so I wanted to find a way to fund my own dreams. And so self-funding is simply funding something on your own, AKA not getting outside funding, not having investors. I think of investors in a lot of different ways. For me, my day job was an investor. And then when I started my first company, it was an investor into my next company. It's basically being able to make your first initial investment on your own and then continue reinvesting and making more. And we still do that today. We've never taken outside funding to date.
Ultimately, what we're talking about today is like how to get money, right? Like, how do you get money to be able to do anything that you want? But most importantly, in this context, we're talking about to be able to start your business. Most people don't just have thousands of extra dollars laying around. And I do feel like a lot of people that come to the service or helping profession of coaching often have come from helping type careers or jobs where they weren't making a ton of extra money, right? And starting a coaching business is often a way for people to actually make more money. No matter what business you're starting, it's going to take an initial investment, right? So what we're going to talk about today is a lot of the ways that we've seen, tell our stories of how we funded ourselves and our businesses, and basically give you some ideas, because at the end of the day, like, it's all about getting creative, right? It's all about figuring out ways to remove obstacles and to be able to get everything that you want.
This is one of the reasons why I fell in love with coaching so early on, not only for myself, but for a lot of my friends and colleagues and clients, and eventually our students. It doesn't require a big investment. If you can make the first payment, maybe the first two payments, and if you believe in yourself and you're willing to follow directions and put yourself out there, you're going to be fine. That's why we do these extended payment plans. We want to give people the opportunity to make back the money as they go. And that was what I did when I went through coach training. That was what you did. It really does work. So self-funding is something that we not only believe in, we've done it, and we have the data. Like, we know that this works to make money and then reinvest it and keep growing through that method.
When I, ended up quitting my job, I realized like I had enough money to kind of make it through the first 3 months. But if I wasn't bringing in income from my coaching business, literally within 90 days, I would have had to go back to another job. And for me, that gave me a lot of fuel and momentum to get to work and actually take action in my business that generated income.
And there's a lot of stories about like startup companies that have a huge amount of funding from VCs that don't make money early on in their business. And sometimes they don't really make money at all because they have all this sort of like fake money coming in. And so VCs are venture capitalists. If you have outside investment coming in, it's not your money. So very often you treat it a lot differently. And I think that you and I are both, of the mindset of like, you want to run a profitable business, even if sometimes you're breaking even month to month because you're investing everything you're making, right. You have control control over the money. It's not someone else's money, and you're not over investing and overextending yourself. This gives you a lot more power and control over the situation when you're self-funding.
I always think of like clips of Shark Tank when it's like, we've done $8 million in revenue this year. And then the sharks are like, how many loans do you have? Or how much debt does your business have? And they're like, 40 million. It's like, wait, what? So
yeah. Or on the flip side, the company will have only made like 100,000 or 500,000 or something, but they're profitable and they've self-funded and they've bootstrapped. And like people are really excited about that because it's a healthier business.
That's one of the things you teach right away, though. If you know you're putting this money in, how much do you need to be able to make back to make it worth it?
Let's say you're on a payment plan and you're investing $500 a month in your coach training or in your coach. We would want you to be making back at least $600 a month from one client, right? So it's just this pattern of investing, making the money back, investing, making the money back.
And of course, your investment in training, for example, is not forever. So once your tuition is paid, it's all, of course, you'll have other business expenses, but
right. Eventually it becomes all profit, or you start to invest into other things.
Yeah.
Teaching our students early on this concept of getting a return on your investment and being aware of what they're making back. There's so many people that I meet who have taken all these courses and programs, and I'll be like, well, what did you get out of it? And they literally don't know. Like they don't know what they got out of the course. I don't understand. Like for me, anytime I make an investment, I map out what am I going to get from this? Even like I'm like buying a house right now, potentially, fingers crossed. Like even that, I'm like, is this a good investment? And people are like, it doesn't matter. It's your primary residence. It doesn't have to be a financial investment. I'm like, y'all are crazy. Yes, it does.
Right. And it is like, obviously it's personal, but it's also a financial investment.
That's how I think about money.
We truly decide to start a business from a place of passion. And we like have this big idea and we can't wait to create something and change our lives. And it's like, we can see the big picture. We can see ourselves like working from wherever, or having unlimited income, or quitting the 9 to 5, or leaving a financially stable relationship, whether it's at home with your parents or with a partner, right? And like breaking free and living the life. Along with the vision, you need the strategy, right? And hoping for the best is not a strategy. I remember calling you back at like 2015 or 16 and saying like, IGC is just going to be the best coach training company in the whole world. And you're like, okay. How? And like, that's the thing. We have to be able to get very clear on the how in terms of the intention, right? The plan. I do think that the Lord or the universe works in mysterious ways, but having a strategy to not only make the investment, but make it back is something that you want to go through with a fine tooth comb. We have a huge summer series coming out this summer for everyone enrolling in our fall course. That's going to really break down how to make money as a coach before training even begins. But I'd love, Katie, if you shared like a little bit of an example of how you've seen new coaches, new in business, starting to self-fund.
Well, like Liv said, ROI, getting a return on your investment, has been a core part of our curriculum and what we teach and how we teach since day one. This summer, we're opening up enrollment early for our fall students, depending on when they sign up, giving them access to a lot of additional resources and training that are all focused around getting a return on your investment, getting a return on your coaching business. We do not want you just going through a course. We want you making money and building a coaching business and changing lives. So we'll break this down really simply. Let's say that your payment for a course is $150, or maybe it's the first payment for a course. Basically pick a number that's the full amount of a course or one of the payments. And you want to start to break it down in different ways that you could get a return. You can do it as a break even, which is great. You can do it as you want to double your investment, also great. It's just about how you want to set up your goals, and maybe you shift it, right? So maybe at first you just want to do a break even for the first 6 months. Then after month 6, you want to be doubling. Let's say your first investment is $150. Maybe to break even on that, you can sell one private mentoring session for $150. That's a one-on-one coaching session. Maybe you could sell 10 ebooks for $15. 10 times 15 is $150. So those are all break even scenarios. If you wanted to double, You would sell 2 private mentoring sessions, 20 ebooks, or you would mix it up in some way. What do you actually want to walk away with from this investment? If you spend $10,000 on a course, how do you want to make back that $10,000? Or do you want to turn that $10,000 into $20,000? Now we know, and we've got so much evidence for it on this podcast, that many of our students make 6 figures and beyond. They're actually 10xing and beyond their investment. But we have to start somewhere, and we want you to like set a goal and focus on it and make the first goal really, really manageable. Another way to self-fund could be completely outside of your business. Maybe you say, y'all are crazy. I don't have a business yet. What am I going to sell? Well, you're going to sell your clothes. You're going to sell your shoes. You're going to sell your handbags. Okay. Not all of them, but any that you're not using, that you're not wearing, that feel like dead weight, get rid of it. Like go sell that shit online. You can also cut expenses. So maybe instead of online shopping, you start doing Rent the Runway or another rental service. And then you've automatically cut your shopping budget like in an eighth. You can do these things so that you can make space for something else. The budget has to come from somewhere.
Last week I was just forced to kind of go through every subscription that I have. But by the end, I was like, oh my God, I just made $400 a month.
Do you know that there's an app for that? It's called Truebill, I think.
Yeah. I've heard of this.
My husband and I, we're in the process of this right now. Like we're looking at like, what is our monthly spend? Like, okay, if we're going to buy this house and increase our expenses, where would that have to come from? Do we save money? Can we make more money? Can we do a mix of those things? Right. So anytime you want to expand in your life, these are important ways of thinking to get to your desired outcome. One time, I talk about this in my book, I made I think $10,000 from selling things from an ex. It sounds like he was a great ex by all the gifts, but he was the worst ex. That's why he had to give the gifts. Sometimes I wish I still had that Louis Vuitton suitcase, but it was such bad juju. I'm over it. Right. So I used it to pay my mortgage because I had 2 incomes coming into the house. And then all of a sudden I didn't. We have power when it comes to money. We're not helpless. We know how to work the system, run the numbers, and figure out how to make that investment into yourself.
When I signed up for coach training, there was no payment plan. I remember thinking to myself, okay, I can put a little bit on a credit card because my limit was small, but I remember calculating, I was a school teacher at the time and I would babysit or tutor on the weekends. Then I thought I was making bank babysitting, but now it's probably even more. I can't even find a babysitter that charges less than $20 to $25 an hour. So I kind of ran the math and I was like, okay, I'm going to be working every Friday night the entire summer, but that was worth it to me. And it made sense, and I knew that I had a plan until I felt confident enough to start getting hired as a coach, which again, going back to this summer enrichment series that we're having, we are going to walk you through this exercise too, that kind of helps you figure out what area should you focus your income generating activities on prior to starting training. And one of those things is really looking at all of the different skills you have, the connections you have, the resources you have, the gifts that you have. There's so many ways to get creative to make money. And once you do that, I feel like it almost gives you this superpower to this feeling of being unstoppable, and it also builds your confidence, which of course you'll need as a business owner.
Love that. So now do you want to talk about getting a loan? Because I know that was what you had to do or what you chose to do.
To start my business and to be able to leave my job. I was in kind of a weird situation. I had just gotten into a relationship. I was going into my 6th year teaching in the public schools. I had just finished coach training. It was one of those moments where it's you're either staying in this life or you're jumping into the other, right?
Right.
So I went through, of course, a different coach training program because IGC didn't exist then. And I got I think it was 30 hours of training. There was absolutely no business training, nothing. And so I kind of did the math on what I would need to be able to get additional coach training because I didn't have it all. And I wanted to be able to get my ICF credential. I would need mentor coaching. I needed some business coaching because I learned none of it. Right. And I had already worked with Katie as a life coach. So I knew who I was going back to. So this is all pre-IGC. I kind of did the math on how much money will I need to be able to run my life and run my business, getting all of the resources I need for the next 3 months. Right. So in order to be able to do that, quit my teaching job, move to another state with, my now ex and be okay. I had to get a loan. right? The X-Files. Yeah, we could have a whole nother podcast on those. But I had to get a loan, right? And so I did that with the promise to myself of being able to pay it back. And I knew what the monthly payments were going to be. I didn't really have complete understanding of the interest rate, but in retrospect, it didn't matter because I paid it off like 3 years early. That was what I had to do to be able to really get started. If you are working a job that requires a lot of time and energy, and I know people will joke like, oh, teachers have the summers off. Like we have no time off energetically or physically. But I knew I couldn't stay in that job and also put in enough time. I'd already been getting up at 4 a.m., working until I had to go to school, falling asleep with my laptop, which not everyone will do. I know everyone's like work-life balance, but like for me, that's what, kind of the stepping stones I had to take. But that worked. And then, 6 months later, I got pregnant with my first son and the loan was all gone. So I was like, well, we're going full time, right? Like I had to make a lot of money. And having Katie as my coach, at this time and really learning not only how to coach, but how to operate a financially healthy business was crucial. So a loan is an option. I think just like anything though, you have to plan for how you're going to pay it back. You have to figure out the income goals every month and stick to it.
We do have a no credit check pre-approval process through our financing partner at IGC. I want to add something onto this, which is to get a temporary investor, aka a personal loan. So we're talking about getting a loan through a bank or a financing institution, but it's also worth asking yourself who in your life believes in you and wants you to succeed and will invest in you. Work out a great deal with them and consider this like your first big move as an entrepreneur, being able to get that loan and make a plan to pay them back and then continue to pay yourself through the proceeds that you make. And here's a great example. So we had a student once who got her ex-husband, this is the X-Files, who got her ex-husband to give her a personal loan, and she paid him back with a percentage of income from her clients until the loan was paid off. Maybe you take a $10,000 loan from a family member, a grandparent, et cetera, et cetera. I would write out the terms of the loan. I would type it out. I would have both parties sign it. I would have it be as official as possible so that you understand what the agreement is. And then maybe the payback terms are like quarterly, you pay back 10% or you pay back 20% of your revenue. So if you make $20,000 in the first quarter at 25%, you'd be paying 5,000 of that to them, but then you get to keep 15,000 to reinvest, right? Or to pay yourself for your living expenses. This is another way to make things work. People come to us all the time saying they want to make things work in their business. They're quote unquote committed. They either don't know how or life is testing them to see how committed they really are. Here's the how. You have to decide within yourself to be committed to make this happen.
If I were listening to this 5-10 years ago, I would be thinking like, I don't know anyone in my life who has money, right? I truly didn't. Like, I was like, I don't know any like wealthy people. I don't come from money. There are people who may be able to help you by loaning you your first couple payments, like Katie said, or like a small portion of what you need to get started. So I do think that sometimes it can be a combination of these, different creative strategies to fund yourself and to fund your business. So if you're thinking that it's like, maybe you're not like who in my life has $10,000 or $12,000, but who in my life would give me like the first $1,000 to start, and then I pay them back $1,200, right? Within a year or something.
You can also offer people interest. So you borrow 1,000, you're going to pay them 1,100. You borrow, 10,000, you're going to pay them 11,000 by whatever date that you guys choose. It's also about how you ask. If you come to the table with a written plan of like, in this month, I'm not going to make money because I'm just going to be learning. My second month, I'm going to make this much money. My third month, I'm going to make this much money. Here are the marketing channels I'm going to use. Here are the resources that I have. Here are all the different business ideas I have and what I project that I'm going to make from this. It doesn't have to be a 20-page plan, but it could be a 2-page plan, so get yourself organized and use this as an opportunity to get really serious about your dreams and what what you're bringing to the table. There's reasons why investors exist. They get something out of the deal. One is the gratification of helping people. Two is often interest, but maybe there's someone who wants to collaborate in helping you get started with your business.
It's such a good practice even to like write those types of proposals. I know one of the other ways that we're actually doing an interview next week with someone who's going to talk about this a little bit more, but getting grants for your business. There is so much money in the world. Like, I'm mind blown. Like, I actually bought a course a while back on grant writing and, creative strategies to fund businesses, not only for, what Katie and I are creating, but just to have more insight to be able to share. There are just so many funds and so many grants, like at your state website for women in business and so on and so forth. But whether you're writing a proposal for, a family member or a friend, or writing a grant, it's going to be such a good practice for you to really outline the fundamental pieces of your business plan. And actually, we offer like a really great, easy to use business plan and New Coach Necessities, taking you from everything from your mission, vision, core values into, the services you provide and your financial projections. All of that's going to help you get really clear and organized, and also be able to present that in a much more effective way. Because even if you're, getting a grant, people are going to want to know what your plan is with the money. And I know if you make a free account on iFund Women, I think it's ifundwomen.com, and we're not affiliated with them in any way, but they have a great, even just, filling out your initial application, walking you through, the different aspects of your business. And I found in even doing that, it, brought a lot of clarity into where we want to grow.
So you can use GoFundMe, you can use Patreon. There's a lot of these crowdsourcing sites out there. We had a previous student who we've interviewed on the podcast, Crystal Cave, who right after she graduated coach training, she did a Kickstarter campaign to launch her fashion business. And a ton of the donors were people from IGC.
Oh, yeah.
They were fellow students, so you just don't know who's invested in you. You don't know who is willing to raise their hand and support your dreams until you ask. And look, we know it can be awkward. It can be uncomfortable, but look at how uncomfortable you are not going for your dreams. Like, it can't be more uncomfortable than that.
Yeah. I always think of like that long drive to my classroom, like hours in the car in DC traffic. And I'm like, this is actually much more uncomfortable than writing a letter to everyone I know and asking them to refer me clients for coaching.
It's so much more efficient to stop complaining and stop being victim to our life circumstances, even if they like royally suck at the moment. It's just so much more efficient to create solutions. You could also like put things on a credit card, right? Like, we didn't even talk about that. But
I mean, I did, right? Like, so for some of my first training, because they didn't have payment plans. But I want to just go back to the fundraising piece real quick too, Katie, because I've seen in their class right now, there is a student who is also offering like pay what you can, coaching sessions. And like, obviously that's just another way to get creative. And then there was another student who is doing donation based. So like, you can donate to her tuition fund. I think this was last round actually. And she would, you can donate to something like GoFundMe or Kickstarter, or all those different Indiegogo, blah, blah, blah. I don't even know them all anymore, but and then with a donation of $50 or $100, you can, give them a 30-minute coaching session or an hour coaching session, or access to a course, or, whatever it is that you have to give. So
I love that so much. And just one little word about credit cards,
from your financial advisor.
My advice is that if you're going to put stuff on a credit card, you make a plan to pay it back and pay off your credit cards, right? Like, you can carry debt for as long as you want to or need to make things happen. But my stance is still what I have shared in this podcast, which is that whatever investment you make, you really need to have a plan to make that money back. We should not be just like throwing our money out into the world without setting an intention, aka also a plan of how that is going to come back to us, and so much more. We need money to live our lives. This is the currency that we live with, amongst other currencies and resources, but we're talking about money today. And you deserve to be able to fund your dreams. So hopefully this has given you a broad overview of some ways to do that.
For sure. And whenever I'm feeling like stuck, just throwing this out there, whenever I'm like overwhelmed, I'm like, I can't see the forest through the trees, right? And like, no matter what level you're at in business, whether you're growing to your first 1,000 or your first million or 10 billion or whatever it is, there's going to be times when you can't totally see it. What I think of is there is clearly so much money in the world. Like you turn on the TV, like the cost that it takes to, produce television shows or the things that people are like, I just look for evidence of money everywhere. And I'm like, okay, it's out there. My job is to get creative and figure out how to bring it to me and to my plans and to what I want to do and my purpose. Right. So I hope that serves you. We gave you a ton of ideas to get started. And as always, if you want to talk it through with someone on our team, innerglowcircle.com/book call. And we're glad to chat with you and help you get creative.
We believe that money belongs in the hands of women who know what to do with it. So
amen.
Amen. See you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.